Hi, I'm Veronica and welcome to my channel. Today I would like to show you a very simple way of getting rid of some of the tension that might be contributing to the discomfort, stiffness, the lack of mobility, and even pain that you might be experiencing. So it really doesn't take much time, and most of the time, all you need to do is to create some movement which will allow your fascia, your connective tissue to slide and glide freely. And once that happens, you're going to experience a huge difference in how freely you move, how easily you move, and also a sense of relief in the body. So all you need is just some surface to lie down on to do that. If you haven't done it yet, don't forget to subscribe and to hit the notification button so that you don't miss any of my videos. This is already the first moment where you can start that process of releasing. And this is by creating a little bit of rocking and massaging yourself against the floor. So just check that you are not really stiff here, kind of tensing everything up as you are rolling from side to side, as I'm trying to show now, but that your body is quite loose and that it's already giving its weight down to the floor as you're making this movement. You don't need to have your feet up. I mean, you could do exactly the same with your feet on the ground. That this is not relevant, but giving the body chance to really start sinking into the ground and feeling kind of floppy and soft and heavy at the same time is what is already going to start bringing a difference. And then land with the knees bent and feet on the mat. The reason why I'm telling you not to have your legs straight is that usually when that happens, it very often creates a lot of tension around the back. There is this kind of arch happening there, and you cannot really fully relax in this position unless you're already very loose. So it's much easier for the back to release when you have your knees bent. And also check how you have those feet. If you're gonna be very close here, this is not gonna be very relaxing either. If you have your feet very far away, it's not going to give you the same support. So you have to play with it a little bit, eventually finding the place where you feel that you don't really need to hold yourself in this position, that it doesn't really need to engage your legs, but you can really stay here in a relaxed way. And you might even give yourself a couple of breaths, feeling that the act of exhalation alone is enough to start sinking into the ground a little bit more. Maybe there was some tension in the jaw that is already diminishing after a couple of sighs. Or you start thinking that, oh, yeah, my body kind of sunk a little bit deeper in the ground. And if you just kind of try to lie, but still with your body completely tense, even though it's in contact with the ground. And we're going to do a couple of things that are going to encourage your fascia to get unstuck. And the first one is to let your arms float up towards the ceiling. And you can imagine that there are some little strings attached to your fingers, and somebody kind of pulls you by the strings attached to one finger, and that makes your shoulder blade peel off the ground, and your head will follow, and you let that happen. And then you very slowly release it and let that shoulder blade sink and rest firmly on the ground. And then you can try the same on the other side. And if that makes it any easier for you, you could even imagine that there is some sort of rope hanging from the ceiling, and you're maybe kind of pulling it, alternating the arms. But as you can see, I'm not doing it with the effort of tensing up all my muscles. No, like everything is super loose here. So it's not so much about really imagining the effort of pulling that rope down as the um, wrists and fingers are all loose. There is space in the elbows. It's more about getting that movement of kind of alternately allowing one shoulder blade to peel off the ground and then the other shoulder blade to peel off the ground. And it kind of rocks your torso from side to side. And unless you're very purposefully trying to immobilize your head, and it was going to require a lot of effort and a lot of tension in your neck to make it happen, you let your head roll together with it. And you notice, yeah, if I lift my one shoulder blade, the head will follow. Of course it will, because they are connected. If it doesn't, then it clearly means that you are holding it. Subconsciously, obviously, but see if you can let that natural movement happen. All right, so this is one way of doing it. And you could also try the version where you're kind of giving yourself a hug. And here again, it's not about how far you reach with your arms. It really doesn't matter at all. But you don't want your arms to be held tightly in the air, but you let those heavy arms rest on your chest. And the only thing that you're going to be very conscious about here is to immobilize the lower portion of your body. That means your legs and your pelvis while you roll from side to side. And maybe if you're doing it the first time, you will be surprised to notice that there is barely any movement there, or that it feels like a lot of effort. So it is because you are not very used to this movement. It is very new and it's not very well mapped. And as well, there might be a lot of kind of tension holding everything together. So don't worry about that. It might be super subtle, much, much smaller movement than for me right now. But what will be important here is that you keep your legs still, keep your pelvis in place, while the upper body moves together. And actually, the slower you do it in the beginning, the better, because then you might feel it better. Is my lower part of the body still, while the upper body moves together? You can be more sure about that, and you can also experience the exact moment of what's going on when you roll towards the right side and what happens when you roll more towards the left side. And maybe you notice that one side is much easier, much more accessible than the other. You also want to check that you're not immobilizing your head. You could actually, just for the sake of it, try to do the same movement with the head very still. So your gaze kind of pointing at the ceiling and moving only the arms and only the torso. And you'll notice that this movement becomes much slower then, much smaller, sorry, much smaller than when you are doing the whole upper body together. Okay. So after you've done that, it already might have brought a huge change in the sensation of how your shoulder blades are resting on the ground, maybe where is your lower back in relation to the ground. So observe that, be curious, because that alone is already going to change a lot. But we're also going to pay attention to the lower body now and move it sideways as well. So you could start with something like rolling your pelvis from right to left, from right to left. And that obviously will make your legs move too, but you're focusing mostly on that kind of massaging the back of your sacrum from right to left. And after a while, this movement could become bigger. And maybe just for a moment, for the sake of it, again, see if you can immobilize your head. You might even hold it so that you're moving only that lower body, so the pelvis together with the legs. And after a while, this movement might become bigger. And again, it's not about you trying to reach anywhere. It doesn't matter where are your knees. It doesn't matter if you reach to the floor. This is completely irrelevant here. But you want to find a movement that feels fluid, effortless, as much as possible, effortless. So if you feel like, it's a lot of effort to bring those legs back, maybe they're going too fast. You move them to where they can easily bounce back. So it's just that lower portion of the body moving from side to side, and it might be very slow to begin so that you again feel how it is, where is that natural range of movement, where is the end of it. Is there anything that kind of stops you, anything that feels like an obstacle or feel like the rusty part? Can you go slower through it so that after the 5th or 10th or 20th time you go through it, it's not gonna feel so rusty anymore. That's how it works. And then if you let go of the head and you let it do whatever it feels like doing, what will it do? So now you're not holding it, and trust me, the neck always responds to whatever is happening in the pelvis. Now, if you do not notice any movement, it is because that communication between the pelvis and the neck and the shoulders, and this fascial connection somehow got disrupted. And then you might need some more time until you start noticing that there is some connection. And in the beginning, it might be something super subtle. But very often, you're always want to kind of do some particular movement with your kind of conscious brain rather than allow your body respond in the way it wants to respond. So whichever way your head wants to roll, let it roll. There is no right or wrong here. It's just your natural response for this moment. All right. So then you can return again to the center, and maybe again there's going to be some difference in the way that feels. Where's your lower back? How your pelvis is resting on the ground. And you're gonna try one more thing that might be a little bit more tricky, but also that's very interesting things. And this is giving some more weight through one of the feet. It feels easier, and that's a little tip. If you have your heel more underneath your knee, it's easier to transfer the weight. And all that you do is to give a little bit more weight through one foot. And then what happens is that one side of the pelvis will start lifting and tilting in relation to the other side of the pelvis. Now, if you're kind of holding the other leg in place, it's going to stay in place. If you're not holding it, it will respond by dropping out. And, you could try the version when it's more controlled and you want to have both feet on the ground and you're just interested in that little bit of movement that again might be feeling like really hard to get. You might start confusing what are you doing? Are you lifting the pelvis? There's no lifting of the pelvis there at all. There's just a rolling from one side of the pelvis to the other. And because of that rolling, a little bit more weight add for one foot One side of the pelvis lifts in relation to the other. Again, if you're letting your head roll, it might want to roll. Then you return. If you wanted to make it into whole body movement, it might start leading you into all sorts of shapes if you keep on pushing through that foot. And that might be interesting and it might be very releasing as well. But if you're feeling like, whoa, no, I don't get anything of what you're saying right now, and its body is not leading me anywhere, let's just stick to lifting one hip at a time. As this kind of feeling, the feeling that comes and the movement that travels through your body, it does take time to tune into it. So after you've done a few on one side, you might try the same on the other side, giving some weight through the foot. And when you give the weight through the foot, it's not really so much as pushing, because then you might start lifting everything. You remember the pelvis stays heavy. The pelvis stays heavy, and you're giving some more weight through the foot, and that makes it roll so that there is more weight towards one side of the pelvis, less weight on that side of the pelvis. And it will lift a little bit, you know, this one butt cheek will lift. If you're going farther, it might not, and it might. But the main point here is that mobility of the pelvis, this kind of rock from side to side. That's what's really important. So once you get a hold of it, you might even start rolling like this. One side of the pelvis higher, the other side of the pelvis higher, from side to side, from side to side, but keeping your legs roughly in place. So it's not so much about what's going on with the legs. It's really this kind of rolling of the pelvis. You might see that my legs are moving, but actually not from side to side. They're moving one more forward, the other one more forward, as if I'm walking on the spot. And that's exactly what you're actually doing. You are mimicking the action of the pelvis as you walk. And let it be as effortless as possible. If you feel you're tensing up all parts of the body, maybe your back, maybe your core, let go of all of it. Remember, everything is heavy. The only thing that needs to work to make that movement happen is a little bit of action from your foot. And the rest of the body only responds to that. It doesn't need any huge effort anywhere. It doesn't need you thinking about this movement. You let it happen, starting with the giving weight through the foot and allowing it to travel. And it's going to affect, you might feel it, also a little bit of your torso. After a longer while, when you're really used to this movement, you could even make it into something a little bit more dynamic. But first, be very sure that you got hold of that movement, that you know that you're not moving anything else than is necessary for this movement to happen. And then again, rest and notice how it feels, what has changed in the body. So we've done all these amazing things with the sideways movements. And even if you kind of lengthen the legs now, it might feel like, oh, this is actually far more comfortable than usually lying on the ground flat is. And that is because of this little bit of moving the body in the ways that it's not used to and kind of getting the fascia to move, slide and glide freely. You might also do something like rolling a leg around its own axis, in and out, one leg and the other leg. And that one is also a very simple and very nice and releasing movement. I hope that this video was helpful and that you can really feel the difference in your body. And if so, please share it with me in the comments. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And if you'd like to receive a free audio that guides you through the moments where you're feeling pain or discomfort, then head to my website. I will link it in the description below. You can also join my newsletter with kindness, where I share much more about the broader picture of why you're getting that pain and tension in the first place, and what are the other things you can do to deal with that. I hope you had a great week, and I'll see you next time.